Welcome to the second part of Chapter 5 on the heart, health and diving, and we're talking about arrhythmias. And in this edition, we'll be talking about a specific type of fainting called syncope. Keep watching. Now, what is syncope? Syncope is an abrupt loss of consciousness, followed by a relatively quick recovery. The causes of syncope range from relatively benign to life-threatening ones. It is seldom overlooked because it usually precipitates a fainting event and a subsequent visit to a medical professional. Syncope that occurs in or around the water poses particular challenges. Drowning may result if a diver loses consciousness and remains in the water. A rapid response is therefore required to bring an unconscious diver to the surface to prevent death by drowning. Syncope can also occur upon exiting the water because of factors such as exertion, dehydration, or even the normal return to blood volume in the lower extremities when the effect of the support of water is lost. Because remember, when we're in water, it's almost like being in zero gravity, and that may precipitate a sudden loss or lowering of blood pressure, causing syncope. Now, the initial response to someone who suffers syncope should be to focus on the basic ABCs: airway, breathing, and circulation. Advanced cardiac life support may sometimes be called for, but people with syncope, as opposed to arrhythmias like ventricular fibrillation, usually recover very quickly. A syncopal patient is usually managed flat on their back until you are assured that they are breathing and their pulses returned. In a cool environment, they quickly recover consciousness. If it occurs following a dive, of course, one should also consider decompression illness or a lung overpressure injury with arterial gas embolism, immersion pulmonary edema, or other causes of arrhythmias. Now, although both syncope and cardiac arrest cause loss of consciousness, they can usually be differentiated. The list of causes of syncope is extensive, but a good medical history can usually help eliminate them. The majority can be attributed or at least discovered in relation to a patient's age, heart rate, family history, medical conditions, or medications that they are on as the identifying cause. Now, if syncope is accompanied by convulsions, in other words, if there is a stiffening or shaking of the limbs after a loss of consciousness, one has to consider that this is actually a seizure as opposed to fainting or syncope. If a person suffers loss of consciousness due to syncope and is kept in the upright position artificially, then a seizure may occur because of the ongoing loss of circulation returning to the brain. So that is something that sometimes needs to be teased out in the medical history taking. So the best for a person who has lost consciousness, presumably due to syncope, is to get them lying flat. Now, syncope may occur during exertion because the heart cannot keep up with the physical demands. If there is chest pain associated with syncope, it may be related to a cardiac condition, angina, or even a heart attack, and that's an important condition to distinguish. The loss of blood pressure or lowering of blood pressure when a person gets up quickly or comes out of the water and may or may not faint or at least feel dizzy is called orthostatic hypotension. Ortho meaning upright, Standing upright is static, hypotension being low blood pressure. And there may be pain, fear, or even accidental loss of urine or stool, and coughing and swallowing may be a variation of this so-called reflex syncope, just like getting up too quickly. Either of these conditions would require a proper medical evaluation to determine what the cause was, and sometimes to interview witnesses who observed the individual who collapsed and can accurately relay the sequence of events. A few cases may require very extensive investigation and sometimes do not result in a specific conclusion, and one needs to make an educated guess whether it was fainting or whether it was a seizure. But this is something that should be discussed between a cardiologist and a diving medical practitioner. So what's the effect on diving? Well, while medical evaluation is being conducted, it is recommended that the individual refrain from further diving. The cause of a given syncope episode can be elusive but should be pursued, especially if the individual hopes to return to diving. Once the underlying factors have been determined, a diving medical practitioner can make an appropriate judgment, together with a specialist, whether or not the individual can return to diving. That concludes this episode on the heart, health, and diving, and we've been talking about syncope. Keep watching as we continue this series, and remember to subscribe to this channel, ask your questions, and if you're not a Dan member already, remember to join. If you are, thank you for supporting Dan.